mind the built-in, but for you guys that has a regular shaft, that is the key thing because your deflection is automatically built into the shot because you're going across that round ball like at the base of a golf club. So it's deflecting less here and more on track. So the plot of the story is he uses, if he's going to use low right, he starts out center and goes to low right, which means what? He began the shot with the straight in aim. Okay? So whenever I cut a ball that's on the rail with low right, I aim exactly as if I was going to cut that ball as thin as I can with extreme low right, and the ball stays on track. And I took a note that I wasn't going to tell Eddie, both of the Eddies. No, I took a note that I wasn't because they play too good now. However, this is the key thing. Eddie, I want to take your time back about 2.5 years ago. We're here playing, and I was just getting ready. I was going to open up my heart to him, okay? That, how you shoot the shot here. And he says, well, I aim for a third of the ball, and I allow for a little bit of curve and a 2-2 before it gets there. And I was getting ready to explain to him that point, and I kept it in all these years, son. Okay? You're going to add 5% to your game. Anyway, God bless Donald, all right? But
God bless Donald. Amen.
You guys who don't know too, I'll tell you a couple interesting facts about Don, because I probably spent the most part of 51 years doing that. But I can tell you a lot of stories of the pool world about him from Chicago to the Midwest, to Florida, to California. But a couple of them that cool story that stand out in my mind is when he beat Richie Ambrose, right after Richie Ambrose won the New York State Championship. And Don played his best pool on the antique tables in California. That's why he played so good in Alaska, because they took all the antique tables, brought them all down there and took them to Alaska. And he just felt right at home. But Don beat Richie Ambrose, and then he played, I think the guy's name was, they called him Youngblood out of L.A. I never forget this. Don's in that punch. The guy comes up and challenges Don to play some, wants to know who plays, and they stick Don on him. So they go over and start playing 9-ball for 50 a game. So the guy didn't have his cue, they left it in the car, so he said, hey, go down and get my cue, and I'll play with a house cue until you get my cue. Anyway, Don, he was broke by the time the guy got back up the stairs. Don gave him like 18 games or over. He just ran out. Incredible. I used to watch him play in 1964. He used to play a guy named Joe Baxter, who was, back then you had to be invited to play in the World Tournament. Joe was one of the top players in the world. And I used to go in the pool and ask Paul Silva, who could I go watch to learn from? He said, yeah, you see that young guy over here? I'm looking at a guy with no hair going, oh, that young guy? He didn't have any hair then. And I went over and watched him play, and I just sat watching him. He got beat. Joe beat him all the time, but boy, Don got to where after a while, after playing him for so long, he started beating him like 1 out of 4 games. But anyway, I was just going to share that with you. He was a great player.
And to this day, he's seen all the top players play. He's probably in the top 5 in the world in his age group.
Oh, yeah.
What a great player, folks. So you folks that got a chance to watch him play here in Milwaukee, God bless you.
I would love to share something with you. And I've told a few of you, but not a lot of you know. I started playing at the age of 50. And that was about 10 years ago. And I started playing at a pool tournament, Latitude 84. And I played this guy named Don Wirtaman. Never heard of him. And I beat him in the first game. It was a race to 2. Okay? Sure enough, he snuck his way back into it and he kicked my ass. There was no doubt about that. And I said, my dad would probably have a good competition with you. And he said, what's your dad's name? And he goes, Bill Baker. And I go, that's impossible. And I go, what happened was, so emotional. So I said, my dad's name is Bill Baker. Baker, and he said, you know, I used to hang out with Bill Baker. We hustled at the age of 18 through 36 in Seattle. And he goes, he ended up getting married, having kids, and becoming an engineer. I looked at him, I said, that's my dad. That's my dad. Yeah, and next thing you know, I hooked him up, and he ended up going after 35 years and going up and having dinner at their house. We hadn't seen each other for 35 years. So, I think that's
Y'all doctors got something they want to share?
Yeah, we want to know how much knowledge is on there. I pick up one pocket and 2005, and then he played one pocket. He took 5th, 6th, I took 7th. All these guys are gone. Whenever I learned from him, I took to the table. If I'd have won that match, I would have been playing Dawn. He played, ended up playing shot draw. Shot draw. It went hill. Went hill, that was the last ball.
I got one more story if I can. And I shouldn't let the cat out in the bag there, you know, you guys back there with one pocket and stuff. No, this is back whenever Bert and the first team were there by the spot. We're there one night and, you know, we were back and everything, we're walking out, working, and we had well, he matched us up, he matched me and Randy, okay? And Bert said, well, he said, if you play Geiler 9-ball, he said, you should probably get the call 8, blah, blah, blah. And he said, if you play one pocket, you should give him two balls, 8 to 6, right? So I go, well, I said, I'm going to accept that one pocket game, but I can't play tonight with my job. I said, let's set the date for the Friday. So we set up this game, boom. I make a call to the farmer's house and I go, hey man, let me borrow some of those one pocket tapes you have from Jersey City. So instead of watching Seinfeld and Fox News, I studied and I did go to high school for this. If I would have focused on my grades as much as I did these tapes for that week. So anyway, we go there and play. And I thought, well, Jesus, all you got to do is learn how to hide your pocket and whitey. I said, how tough is that? And run out balls, right? So anyway, I get out there and Don, we go through the tape. He goes, well, this is a good one. One to watch for me and 5 watch me. Which ones do we to watch and what part? So now we go out and play. The first game I beat him 8 to -3. The first game, next game I beat him 8 to -2. So now he wants to adjust the score to 16 to -5. And I said, you as an example, I said, I'm not here yet. I said, I don't rematch up the same night. I said, if you want to match up, we can take it play. But anyway, thanks to Donald, he beat the Rangers. And maybe that's why he's so rapping to me to this day. And I've 86 my ass out of his full room just for the record. I know it's really bad, but that's why I don't go over there and but anyway, thanks to Donald. Yeah, right. If you lose, he might still like me, okay? Anyway, thank you again. Thanks, Reggie.
I am not a pool player. I come with Gary and with his group. And, but I met Josh and I have a lot of time to talk to him. And because I'm not a pool player, I would just sit there and watch. And he always told the most interesting stories about being a bush pilot and his adventures in Alaska and how much he loved Alaska. And also how much he loved his first wife, the girl's mom. He used to say that that was the best wife he ever had. And I used to love to hear stories about her and about his children, and also about being a bush pilot. I would miss him greatly, especially at the end. And I happy that his family.
Yeah, thank you. A lot of you don't know, give you a little bit of history of Don. He was back in the 1970s, the late 60s. He was an ambulance driver, and then he started teaching people to fly out of Boeing and stuff, and eventually got further in his career. They get off track a little bit. One time we rented the plane. It was Mike Siegel, Jim Rimpey. I'm sure all of you know who they were. Myself and Don, we rented a plane, and he flew us over Mountain Out. Boy, I'll tell you, you don't think that's something. Flying over them glaciers at 10,000 feet to go home. And Mike Siegel does not like to fly. So I asked him, I said, Mike, I said, you don't like to fly? I says, why are you doing this? He says, I cannot forgive myself if I didn't get up there and do this once. So he tells you that. But Don was an expert. I mean, a really good pilot. He was cautious, he was safe. I know some people he worked for in Alaska, and they expected him to fly out these places. People get killed up there all the time. Don just wouldn't do it. He was a very safe pilot. And I can tell you a few hairy stories he's had on that too. He was a great pilot, he was a great pool player, and he was a good ambulance driver.
So adding to that story, I lived in Alaska with Don too, and I used to go fly with him when we would fly out to the bush. We get these little like 10-seaters or 6-seaters, and they fly around. Well, he called up one day and said, "Hey, want to go fly?" And I go, "Yeah, let's go." I go, "Bring my girlfriend." "Okay, bring your girlfriend." Well, my girlfriend's pregnant, right? Well, it just so happens he's teaching a student that day, and not only was he teaching the student, but he's teaching the student to land and to take off. So all day we're up and down, up and down, and my girlfriend's like, "Oh, I'm sick. Oh, I'm sick." And Dawn had like zero sympathy. When we get done, he goes, "Yeah, with her." And another time too, when I was like 22, I was like hungry. I wanted to learn everything, and I missed a ball, and I turned it on. "What did I do wrong?" He goes, "You missed it." Oh my God.
Straight to the point. Yeah, he's flown a few famous people too. Oscar De La Hoya and his family, fighter. Spent overnight with John Denver when he was alive, singing around the fire in one of these lodges up there. And I can tell you the stories go on. They're endless. But, Don's probably bumped into more famous people than you just can't imagine. Not being down there in Hollywood and stuff. I mean, every time he's sitting out here in Puyallup one day, he turns around the store, he goes, looks over at this guy and he goes, "Hey, aren't you Craig T. Nelson?" And he goes, "Yeah, that's me." The guy who played coach. He bumps into him all the time.
He's going to bump into a few more here in the next few months.
Anybody else?
You got a story, share it. We'd like to hear it.
I'd like to say something. I remember first meeting Don many years ago at the Ball and Rack, 45th in Wallingford, Seattle, just opened up by Stan Paul and Harry Paul, who started. That was right after the Hustler movie came out. And I remember distinctly being introduced to Don by Dan Louie's father. And Dan Louie's father is a kind of a character too. He liked to play pool. He played very well, but he gambled at it, contrary to what Dan does. Wow. In other words, I say that kindly. I hope Dan's here. He's not here. At any rate, I remember meeting him, and we played a game of straight pool, and I think I ran 30 or 40 balls on him, and then he got a hold of the table and I don't think he ran 100 on me, but he ran quite a few balls, and I knew then he was a hell of a player. And over the years, we batted and played many times. I would call Don to be kind of depict him as a kind of a silent assassin. I got to know Don, doing some legal work with him and meeting him, and got to know him better outside the arena of pool. But he was always a very kind of an individual, never got out of line, never got boisterous, very compassionate guy, and never really said much. When he did say something, it was relevant. It was a main thought, and you should pay attention to, especially at the pool table. You never knew exactly what he was doing at the pool table in terms of, unless you watched him and paid attention, which is a characteristics that a lot of pool players don't do. And you pick up a lot by watching somebody as skillful as Don was. His speed on a table, to me, was the best thing he had going, in addition to his gentle stroke and pocketing balls. And he was very good. Last time we played, wasn't too long ago, we played some pretty good games, but I still had to get spotted by Don, and I was not successful in beating him the last time. I guess the backer here knows.
Yeah.
But,
Eddie can tell you.
he loves money, so he knows everything. At any rate, I think, when I think about Don, I really admired him. And I always told him, I said, well, why don't you get involved in some bigger games? But he never really aspired to get involved in some big-time action, which he could have beaten, in my estimation, the majority of the players out there. And even later in life, he still controlled that table. And if you ever played one pocket against him, you were always in a trap. And I loved playing one pocket with him, but he wasn't that enthusiastic about playing and matching up.
And I can tell you why. Don and I talked about it many times. Don actually, these last probably 10 years, really had a dislike for pool only because his position that he was at in life, he was forced to play. He had his Social Security, he had a little bit of income coming in. He had it managed so good, he'd get his check at the end of the month, and then he'd pay off all his bills that day, and then he'd look at me and go, well, you got $80, So he'd go out and play in the little tournaments, and that's basically how Don was surviving. And he was very good at it. But that made him have a dislike for pool only because he was forced to play. Don wanted to play pool because he wanted to play it, not because he had to play it. And, but he'd do it. He'd get up every day just like it was a job. Until he's 75 years old.
He'd grind on everybody and grind them down, including our staff. You come in every weekend. And we called him $2 Don after a while, and we just quit arguing with him. He was, how much for a pancake? How much? Well, I don't want it that big. I just want it a little smaller. Well, how much if I can get it real thin? Can you just take that one pancake and split it in two, so I can have two pancakes for the price of one, right? So he developed a nickname, $2 Don, for the pancakes. Nick Don's $2 breakfast. And so I was talking to my friend down the street, Jimmy Camadoni. He owns 3 catering places, and he knows Don. And he's been around for a while. And so I told him, I said, in memory of Don, I said, I'm going to put his $2 breakfast on the menu. And we're going to call it Don's $2 breakfast, right? And Jimmy fired right back and he said, and sell it for $4.95. Well, we should have been selling it to that bastard. He was great. the staff really took him in and took care of him. We're glad to have him here, for sure.
We all were.
Hey, just so you guys all know too, I see this book's been opened and people have been writing little stories in it. Signed, this is their daughter's, Don's daughter's gonna be taking that leave, so anything you can write in there, just sign your name if you'd like. If there's a little story you wanna share, they'd love to hear it.
I'm actually in the middle of one, I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
But are we gonna take a moment?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, we wanna do the